It's a fall holiday season smorgasbord. There's a ton of great projects in here for all skill levels. Welcome to Woodworker's Dilemma. The first easy project we're going to start off with some different variations on shutter style panels like these. So let's get into it. We're using 1x6s and 1x4s. So I cut these down to various lengths. These are 10 inches wide and these are 20 inches long. I have 1/8 inch spacers in between them. I'm going to glue and brad nail these. Square your boards with a speed square. I'm going to stick some smuckers in here. Put a couple brads in here. Add a dab of smuckers. Let's do a little clamping. Alright, so this is our rustic version. You see all the black paint I got in my hands? I just went and put a coat of paint on another set of these. I'm going to bring out here in just a few minutes, show it to you black, and then I'm going to do a scraping paint technique. I hope you like it. I came down 2 3/4 inches. Add a dab of smuckers. Little dab will do. This is DIY Christmas decor. Line up your lines. I'm going to slide my shims down to this end. Brad. And here they are. 32 1/16 inch long. These are 1x6s. And when we're done, you're going to have a whole different variety of things to see. How they look distressed, how they look finished. We're going to mix and match some colors. And we're mixing and matching the cross member pieces between 6 inches and 4 inches.
Well, the wood's in better shape.
Well, I sanded those. That first one was not sanded.
Isn't that cool?
I'd say that's done. Lightly sanded. It's 120 grit. Yeah, that did make a huge difference. Here's a side by side. Unsanded, lightly sanded. I'm gonna let that set up a little bit. Speed square, nail gun. You're gonna want to put 2 nails in each one, and I'm gonna screw from the back. Then you're gonna want to do the same to this side. Now I'm only gonna put 1 in. You can measure this. I just used a spacer block, and so that's how I'm getting my depth. Just flush it up with the outside. We'll see how it looks. And I'm happy with that. These are 1.25 inches. Here's another one. This is actually going to be the back side. Same principle. I just moved it up a little higher on the bottom. You can put spacers in here, whatever thickness you want, and you can screw them from the back side if you're not gluing them. 1.25 inch screws, which is what I am going to do. All right, so this one's going to be a little wider, 4 panels, and this is just rough 1x4, which is 3/4 inch wide, flush to the ends. There's some variation. You can't necessarily add 3.5 and 3.5, 3.5 and 3.5, and then 3/8 inch to that to give you this width, because this is rough lumber. So then you just come up with how far up you want it to go. And I'm going to use this piece of wood as my spacer. So they're straight. Flush up this edge. Then I'm going to square it. I got to move one of these out of the way. I only put one in each of them so that I can move the other end if I need to make this fit. This time I'm putting 2 in all 4 of these. These are rustic. If you want to nail them from the back side, you can. I'm going to do some stenciling. You can get these on Amazon. That's where I got mine. What you're going to want to do is square it up to one edge, and then I measured 2 7/8 of an inch in from each edge to center this stencil. So now I'm just going to very carefully apply some blue painter's tape, hopefully without moving this. The trick to doing this is to lightly apply it and just dab it in there and then let it sit. Dry, come back, dab, dab, dab. You know, you can change your colors, do whatever you want. You know, you can see here it lifts up a little bit. So pay attention. You know, if you need to hold this down, hold it down. I'm going to put 1 coat in one color, maybe 2 to get that darkness that I need. This isn't exactly a real bright green, and maybe I will add some bright green, but this is moss. Shake it up. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your bottle of paint. Lightly apply. I'd rather go back and do it again instead of getting a bunch of bleed out underneath of it. One good thing about this chalk paint is it dries super fast. My sponge back up a little bit. Work it in. Like I said, I don't want too much. Rubbermaid disposable microfiber cloths. Got the little stars, the snowflakes. Do tons of these. Let me go get the other ones. I'm going to be doing more Christmas stuff. I'm going to be doing some gnomes, and I'll be coming out with that video pretty soon. Here we're going to make a super simple church steeple. I set this to 60 degrees. We're going to make a super simple church steeple. You're going to want to mark your center point to make sure that your pitch of your roof is correct. 60 degrees. Boy, this is going to make a mess. pop a brad here and a brad here at an angle. And let's take the church steeple out of the clamps. Put that board on there so I didn't dent the church. And there's the church. And I'm not going to put doors and all that other stuff on it. I'm just going like that. Here's how I did the base. This is just a old weathered wood. This is just a big tree that I made. I pocket hold it together. Just put this wedge backer on it. Julie painted it. This is quite literally just a wide, cut from a wide pine board, and I just cut it on my circular saw. This was sawmill. I got this wood from the sawmill, but you know, if you had, that's 7, 8, so a 1x10, you could just get a 1x10. Figure out how tall you want your tree, and then just taper it down to nothing. This is really self-explanatory. I mean, just cut 2 straight edges. You don't have to pocket hole it together. I did, but it's kind of overkill. Black and green base, white over the top. Let me get my other tree here. I know I told you do it out of a 1x10, but you can see here, this is of, I think it was 19 inches wide. It was just a solid piece of pine that I picked up from a sawmill. And this is the offcut from this side of the tree, and this is the offcut from the other side of the tree. When you get your 1x10s and you cut them down, you know, you're going to have offcuts that you can make more trees with. And this base, it's just a simple post with 4 little perpendicular supports. Easy peasy Christmas treesy. I got about half a dozen of these things. These smaller pumpkins that I made. I got one here that's just a little more brushed. This one's got a lot more of the gray coming through. And again, these are both black walnut stems. I'm going to paint all the way around first on the sides before I scrape it off. All right, then I'm just going to lay my globs back out. Get any goobers off before I scrape it. You're going to want to have a rag handy, preferably an old rag. I'm using this little pastry scraper. I just kind of lightly sprayed around. It's not heavily coated any place. Just dry brush it on. Couple pumpkins. Or actually 1 pumpkin. I kind of like that shape a little better. This spalted poplar pumpkin that I made, I just freehanded everything. So I wanted to put it together, and now I'm tracing the patterns. But this is the trace mark, and this is just a regular 1x4 pressure treated. The right half of the pumpkin, and you can see there I traced this one out. This is black walnut, and these were just scraps. I'm going to put this in for the stem, and I'm going to finish this up real nice. I rounded the edges on my belt sander, kind of made these sections. There's 5 of these pumpkin sections. Here I'm sizing this board that goes on top of the outer edge of the pumpkins to make sure that after it's all sanded down, it stops at the right points. And I'm just basically drawing in my shape right here. Well, here it is all painted up. I put one coat of white on there and wiped it off. And then I lightly brushed on a cream color. I'm going to glue this and brad nail it. And then I'm going to go back and touch it up. But right now, I'm going to glue these two on here. I'm going to get my spacing the way I want them. I got these little blocks that I'm going to put in between these to hold this together. And I'm going to clamp down on these two. I got this sitting on a piece of wood. And so then I'm going to glue up this half to this half, and I'll come back and put this piece on. And then I'll go back and touch up any of the areas in these corners that I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and glue this up and brad nail it together. Little smuckers. Get this guy going. I'm just going to kind of position it the way I want to. And then I'm going to square up the bottom like this. And I'm going to put this top piece on just to see how it looks. Now, I'm not gluing this on yet, but I do want to check it out. That's what we're looking at. Let the glue set up a little bit, and then I'll pop a few brads in it. These spring-loaded clamps are pretty nice. You just put them in place, pull this bottom trigger, and it pulls the bottom up for you. Now I'm just putting, not heavy pressure, just pretty light pressure, but enough. I'm going to check it one time just to make sure these haven't shifted around too bad. You guys know how that works. Yeah, I'd say we're okay. Got that one block in the back there. Putting that there for my bottom. Rub it around a little bit. All right, I got it all clamped up and let that sit for a little bit. Okay, so I brad nailed it. I did a really good job, as you can see here. I'm gonna pull these through, and there's tons of different ways to do it, but this is what I'm using. Vice grips, you just set it just tight enough to stick it on there. You're gonna wanna have some type of a backer just like this. Maybe a little thinner than this one. Take it out as gently as you can, because the head's gonna try to pull out the material. And now I got some holes to patch. I don't want to let my tool roll over. You'll see at the end how well it covers up. Mistakes happen, that's part of it. I'm just going to push these down a little bit so I don't have anything sticking up high. Those are done. I'm just going to take a little bit of this paint that I used for the base coat and fill those holes. Just like that. Let that dry. This chalk paint dries super fast. And I'm just filling those cracks in. Now it's ready for the second coat. This is black walnut. Not half bad. This spalted poplar and black walnut pumpkin turned out really cool. I went ahead and glued these on. Make it to the way you want it to make it look. I'm just telling you something to consider if you have an angle like this. You don't want it to stop a 1/4 inch above this side of the pumpkin. when I glue these two halves together, I want to make sure that it's straight, flush across the bottom. That's the first time I've ever made this thing, so you guys are learning this right along with me. That's going to be the pumpkin right there. Coat of this on here after I glue it. And I'm going to go with this setup right here. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the edges. Second coat.